Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club. If you're at all interested in anything we talk about in this episode, go ahead and check out the description down below, or if you even just want to know more about us, click on the links below. Now on to the episode.
Coffee Experts Club. Good to see you, boys. Great to have you guys here today, Drew and Ben. How you guys doing?
Good to be here.
Yeah, man. I'm excited because we've got a guest today that I think is a pretty amazing dude. And it comes out of a coffee brand that I feel like I've got a lot of history with. A coffee shop that's been around a long time here in Southern Oregon. And he's a new owner there, but he has done some, I feel like, pretty revolutionary stuff to a brand that's been around a long time. You know, I think you see they've gone through a couple iterations of owners, and you see each owner come through, and you see some owners that are just like, hey, we'll just kick back and just kind of keep the status quo, just keep the norm, maybe add in a few little things here. And then Travis stepped in, he and his wife, and it was like, bam, like the whole place changed. Pulled out all the existing furniture, redid all the furniture, like reset the way the bar was originally set up, came up with like digital menus, like did all this stuff. And he didn't do it right out of the can. Like he edged into it slow, like wanted to really get his feet underneath him. But Travis, Oregon Mountain Coffee, man, so great to have you here this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so Travis, pretty rare that I get so much history with coffee shop before we have them on. You know, we've had a lot of different guests on, but it's pretty rare for me to be able to say I knew the founders and they sold it, and they were a client of ours in the next set of ownership. And then there was a set of ownership that, you know, we kind of lost touch with. And then when you took it over, I'm like, wow, this guy's doing something new. And you and I had some conversations around the bar, and then like we became friends. And I'm like, hey man, please come on the podcast. And then, you know, we've been talking, you know, but you're like, hold on a second. I'll come on the podcast, but I've got some really cool stuff I'm going to do first. And then you did the really cool stuff, and like the facelift and all the cool stuff have been rolling out. So I would just love to hear a little bit about your story of why Oregon Mountain, what you got into coffee, because I know this wasn't necessarily your jam before this. And then, man, inspire the people a little bit with some of the new things you've been trying and what led you those directions.
Yeah. So to me and my wife, we recently, 2 years ago we moved back to Southern Oregon, and we were just looking for a business to purchase that was passive. But then we came across something that was actually like, okay, this is not necessarily passive income.
The opposite, actually.
But it is profitable. And unlike everything else we were looking at, it was something that we were interested in. We're like, hey, I have 3 things every single day. I have coffee, I have steak, and I have water. And so the opportunity for coffee to come up, it was like, that's interesting enough, and it is profitable. So we kind of looked into it, and the more we looked into it and dived into it and kind of learned the details during the negotiation side of purchasing it, we're like, this is almost felt God sent, like right down our alley of like me and my wife's expertise and details. And the only thing that was kind of holding up was just negotiations on the price of it. But we were like, you know what, there's enough foundation here that this and how much we love it, that little bit of percentage higher than what we think it's worth, it won't matter in the long run, especially since this business, like it was so immediate. Like, I feel like this is what we're supposed to be doing, and it was a little bit more work than you anticipate. And you have to constantly kind of remind yourself like, hey, luckily I enjoy this. Remember when things get hard that you do enjoy this and you did pick this. But that's kind of how we came across the business. It was just like a great opportunity, a great foundation, a great clientele to kind of purchase a business and say, hey, it's got good enough regulars and a good enough product that we don't need to jump in and change that right away. We can kind of get in and kind of learn about the industry slowly, and then more or less morph it into the way that we would like it to. Because it wasn't like, hey, you got to get in there right away and make money or else this is going under. Wow. We could buy ourselves times with the foundation it had and really curate our version of coffee, and so that's what we kind of did the first year. We're like, don't renovate, don't change nothing, just improve a little bit, better ingredients, show up every day, be consistent, talk to the customers. And then once we start figuring out exactly what we envision, we'll have their trust. And when we start making changes, they won't, question it, and then we could really push our version of the coffee brand forward from there. So that's kind of what we went into March of this year when we just like renovated it overnight. But I had a lot of skills to learn prior to that. Baking professionally, roasting, no experience in any of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yours isn't just a coffee express. I think that's the biggest thing. Some people buy into a coffee shop and they're like, oh, it's just a drive-through. All I have to do is staff it. I'm buying my beans from somebody. Like I'm serving other people's like pastries. So all
Yeah.
I need to do literally is just pull shots, add flavor, and like people, and keep them moving quick. That's but I think you bit off a much bigger thing. I don't know if boys, you've got some questions around that. I don't know if you do that. Like he's baking all their own stuff. They're also roasting all their own coffee, all out of one location. There,
Yeah.
here's the
Wow. I'm curious what your expertise is. I mean, because it sounds like you guys have never been in the coffee industry. Do you have any like service industry or something else that you're coming out of that you've like kind of leaned on a bit, or is just it's all like learn on the fly for you right now?
Me and my wife, we have expertise in sales and marketing and branding. My wife actually still works for a large advertising company, but we have experience. Like one side of the coffee business and what I'm doing here is I'm really big into health. I'm like a certified health coach that I was doing prior. So everything I do and what I'm trying to switch it over is to higher quality ingredients, higher quality coffee, specialty coffee in particular. But me and my wife both have experience we actually owned and operated some dispensaries 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
And the industries align a lot, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those skills we were able to transition into this. So yeah, a lot of that experience was really easy. Again, there's a lot of parallels between like a dispensary and a cafe. The products are really quality based and oversaturated markets.
Right.
And kind of really trying to figure out your niche in that. So that kind of helped, but we've been out of that for a while, advertising that and stuff. So that was a big thing for us.
Your wife's a gem, man.
Way more sense.
I think your bride is such a sweet lady, dude. She does such a good job at loving people. And right? Because I'm always watching, when I come into places, and a lot of places, I'm just another consumer, right? They don't know. But we've had a lot of experience. I've watched a lot of people, you know what I'm saying? So I think that the way that she deals with your staff, the way that she loves on your guests, I think your wife is amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. Well, that's why I kept her in there the first year, to get the trust of the customers. I'm a little bit more focused, and just trying to make the best coffee in the world. And I can't make coffee, pull a good shot, and do some latte art and talk to people. So wife can't.
I'm curious about your vision for operations and creative expression and just how you guys wanted things to run. Did you have a vision going in, and did it shift as you got your hands on it and become more organically evolved?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came into it with the vision of just literally saying, well, I'm going to improve it. I know right away I'm going to improve the ingredients of the baked good size. And it was obvious the efficiency side was, I'm kind of like an efficient guy with everything I do. I try to be extremely efficient. It was very obvious that what they were doing wasn't there. But I didn't have the expertise to kind of learn that. Was another one of those things I was kind of like, I got to get in there. I got to learn. I got to understand the industry. But it definitely, my expectations were to definitely improve it, but I didn't know how, until I got in there and did that. And that was another thing. Like I said, I didn't get behind the machine or know any experience until probably 6-7 months ago, but I was watching a lot of YouTube videos. And I do have some experience, I forgot to mention, as far as I have a friend that owns a bunch of restaurants. So getting into those fast casual, that he kind of took his experience from working at In-N-Out 20, 30 years ago in the original one in California. And I sat with him a lot a few years ago prior to buying this business. And, that's the way I kind of went into this business thinking as it grew, as I'm like, okay, I want to improve the quality, but what if I try to create a specialty coffee cafe that's kind of ran like In-N-Out? It's highly efficient, extremely organized, great price, not the best ingredients in the world, but it's an improvement on ingredients. And I'm like, I want to see if I could create a coffee and cafe brand around that, but also as a roaster. So, and offer the people that. So then there's another connection to the product and the control of it, the consistency of it. So I always came in there with that mind of having In-N-Out, but also another burger joint, and seeing the systems they have to have in place in order to do, 7 figures and make it profitable. It's the system. It's all about the systems, waste, all that. So I kind of came in there trying to think of it more like a high output restaurant.
Sure. And it sounds like, I mean, obviously with your previous experience, you came in with a pretty good grasp on, okay, these are my biggest cost of goods. I got to get roasting under my own roof, and I got to get my baked goods under my own roof. Was the profit point and your cost to retail a big factor in that, or was it primarily just I want to be able to control the quality of the product? Or I guess was it both?
Well, it's now both. It definitely started with the quality of the product. I'm like, I can't worry about margins. I know the margins are there if I get it right,
Sure.
And so it's because I'm a quality person, that's what I focused on first. I could control that. And then I could go in to start being like, well, if you're trying to give people quality and not charge them outrageous amount of prices, you have to be extremely efficient with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. So I knew that that's something I could later deal with. And again, buying a business that's already profitable kind of gave me that leniency of saying, focus on the product, focus on customer service, consistency of the things I can't control, knowing nothing, and then go into developing the product. And what makes that so hard is the roasting side of it. Like roasting coffee is insane. It's insane. That's not even counting if you have zero experience behind a machine or baking.
Bro,
So,
how ballsy. What a ballsy move. You're like, hey, I'm going to take over this business, then I'm going to control every facet, and none of the machines am I familiar with. Dude, well done. Like, I think that very, very few people are that brave, man. So I'm proud of you for that. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I love it. That's the thing is I remind myself, I love it. I love every part of it. And I don't have a lot of hobbies. Everything I'm very goal oriented. I love doing what I do. I've always kind of been blessed to do what I do professionally. And everything I do with my wife. I do with my boys not too far away from me. And then if I'm not working on the goals that I enjoy, I'm hanging out with them or I'm working out. And that's what I enjoy doing. I'm not a Mai Tai on the beach type of guy or looking for places to travel. I love what I do. And I feel very blessed to be able to do things I enjoy. So work isn't too stressful for the most part, except, when you're standing all day and your feet hurt, that type of thing. But outside of that, I really enjoy every detail of the coffee industry, the specialty side, pulling shots, roasting. The baking side's fun, but it definitely can eat up most of your day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on the efficiency of that. We're looking to expand so I could get some time back with that.
Yeah, that was my next question. I mean, it sounds like with this first location, you really came in swinging and have done really well for it. Are you looking immediately now to then, okay, how can I expand locations or maybe just expand internally for like bringing on a baker or bringing on another roaster? What's your expansion kind of vision look like?
Luckily, the way that I've designed the baking is the reason why it's so inefficient is because of space. I'm essentially doing it out of a licensed residential. That's what makes it extremely efficient. But everything that I've modeled the business around as far as baking goes is I'm not going to keep anything that customers don't like, but I'm also not going to keep anything that's not suited for if I'm going to do a drive-through. I try to design all the food based around something that people could grab and go and be high quality ingredients. And that sounds a little crazy, but you have to kind of see the portions, the way I set things up and the design around them. But as far as expansion goes, we are looking for that. I'm actively looking for a drive-through space, but that's not an easy thing to do because I'm not going to force any type of unorganic growth. I'm not interested in that. I'm not chasing the dollars. I'm chasing to expand, make sure that expansion, I don't lose what I already have in it. So I'm patiently waiting for that. And we're looking at a location that's actually in the same plaza we're in right now, but about 500 or 600 square feet bigger, which would be a game changer. So I could, have a bigger roastery, put that more on, for the customers to kind of experience, order more beans, and then have a kitchen in there as well. So that's kind of in negotiations right now. We're just more or less negotiating. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
I've always thought, you're in a unique spot where, like, you've created a niche, like people already know you've been there. I mean, you've been there. That shop has been there over 20 years, right? Like that shop,
wow,
a long time, right? Same location, 20 years, and virtually nobody has nested themselves into your backyard. Like you have Starbucks up the street, but it's pretty substantially up the street. You know what I mean? You've got the Pony Espresso Good Bean swap that happened, but that's pretty far up the street going the other direction. I mean, it's like where you're at, and you're in the middle of a neighborhood of like older people that quite frankly are looking for a cafe to come and sit with
Absolutely.
their friends and hang out. But I've always thought, it would be cool. I often wondered if you could just like pop over across the street and actually do a drive through like across the street in Rogue Federal's parking lot or in the Elks Club's parking lot where like a drive through you would be catering to a different client than who is coming and hitting you every single day. Because I think a lot of your sit down people like are there to sit down. So I always thought, I bet Travis, and this is not something I would normally recommend for most coffee shops, but because you're so entrenched in sit down already, and you've already really anchored into that, and you've got such a solid base on your roasting too. Like you've got roasting clientele that you guys are like shipping beans to like all over the place, you know, that you could probably open up an expression that wouldn't actually be much competition almost directly across the street. And I've never seen somebody do that before, but thought that could actually be something that might be really cool.
Yeah. And I've thought that, but like a lot of my thoughts in this industry, I'm like, these are all my thoughts talking to you guys. Podcast, I could sit down with you guys and ask a lot of questions and say, hey, am I like, listen to this business plan. Am I crazy? Because I feel like, you know, I know how to run a business. I love business. I'm like, I feel the same thing. I'm like, this, if you can make this work, or am I crazy? These guys would know. But yeah, I agree with you. And that's definitely something we're kind of looking to in as well. It's very close. And speaking of that too, is Harbor City. They're actually opening up like a drive-through up there right around the corner from Pony Espresso. But I do agree with you. And there's a lot of houses and they're kind of connecting I-5 to North Phoenix Road now. So
yeah, you're in a premier future growth. I ran project management for Road Credit Union for some years before I started doing Collab. And I sat in on meetings every single week about like developing that next development. That's like the next biggest building development in all of Medford is that little space that's like directly across the street from you. So I think you're in a spot where that could really explode. Now they've been talking about it for 20 years, but I think that when it does come, I think that you're really seated for some cool growth, I think.
Yeah, that's the one fun thing about having a cafe that makes it like a TV show that I think is a superpower is it's a networking machine. And so you go in there and, you know, people just come up to you and tell you everything, you know, and you'll get people like, I work with the city or I own half the city. And I'm telling you the next year or 2 years, you're going to be in the spot. You know, they tell you without even have to ask. So you get all this feedback of like, you know, especially like you said, the regulars who kind of trust you now and like you, and they come in here and tell you everything you want to know. You know, some inside information for growth and stuff. So that's why, again, one of the reasons why with the expansion, I'm like, I'll be patient with it, you know, and again, be thankful I'm in this area. And if the right situation comes up, I'm always looking, always.
I will say there's a pretty popular diner here locally that opened up a second location. It was about 5 years ago now, right across the street from themselves. They call one location north and one location south, and they are both slammed all the time.
Really?
Yep, directly across the street. I mean, I think for it to really work, you know, do a car count on the street.
Yeah.
You know, 45,000 cars, which is what this road has usually about. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Same menu?
Yep, exact same restaurant. They were just like, we need more tables. We'll open up a building across the street.
I feel that. That is definitely, wow. That's a blessing for them, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're pretty popular. But I mean, I do like that idea that, you know, if I have to run, I can go through the drive-through across the street, or if I just want to, you know, take my wife down for coffee for the weekend, I can go sit down.
That's the part I like is like you've got it locked down. Your place is always slammed. Like it's hard to get a table in there. Even with you expanding out and putting more tabletops in, you've just like multiplied the amount of people that can sit in there. But that's why I'm like, man, but I bet a drive-through wouldn't take one lick of traffic out of what you've got sitting down. It's just a totally different customer, you know. I think that, and the market is hungry for it because there's not really somebody up right there. But Trav, I mean, 'cause we have a few minutes left. What do you feel like is something that you're like, hey, I came into this and this was way harder than I thought it was going to be. Like it's like I thought I understood, I thought I knew, and I was not prepared for the animal that came out of that cage at me.
Well, I mean, roasting's at the top of that list. Understanding, especially when you go to that specialty side. And, I was at the Roast Summit, and this was like the president for the largest, especially importer of Kavoya.
Yeah.
Like he said, he's like, has anyone gotten in the industry in the last few years? And I'm like, one of two people and as roasters. And he's like, sucks for you. He's all, just so you know, it's going to get better. And he's like, you came into the worst time in history, but you will learn more in these next year or two, or that you have, than some people learn in 15 or 20 years. Mm-hmm. So that was a big taking on for sure. But then also just learning how to deal with, regulars and my expectations as opposed to theirs. But again, I feel like I've done that switching people over from dark roast to medium roast might've been also the hardest thing to do. But I'm proud of myself, because going up to the Roast Summit, you realize that's most roasters' biggest issue.
Yeah.
So I would say roasting definitely is. But then from a system standpoint is that inefficiencies, learning to run the machine, setting things up correctly. That, I listened to one of the podcasts of the guy, I think it was Swig or Swig. And him talking about when he took that one over, I was like laughing, because I'm like, oh my, this was my life. I felt like it was me on the podcast, learning those things. And why is the blender 30 feet over here? Like, I don't know anything about coffee, and I know that's not right. That's not going to make it more efficient. So, learning the systems and then getting the right machines, things like that. But coffee roasting is definitely at the top of that list it's still a headache, but I do enjoy it.
Well, I know you're not a big travel guy, but we got to get you down to Belize. We got to get you down to come and taste some Coffee de los Mayas, come down and see Drew, spend some time with us. I think, we'd love for you to just come down and see what we got going on. I think I've just been so blessed to watch your thing grow and to be a part of. It's cool to be in my own town. We don't interview a lot of people from our town, so I think a lot of the folks we've had on come from other places, and I just know, and I've told you this personally, and I think I'd just say it on the air so that everybody can hear from podcasts and any of the socials that watch. Like, your place is the place I choose to go, man. Like when I go to coffee around here and I've got some time to sit and just be able to enjoy it. I mean, I've got Good Bean here in my backyard, and I think that I'll go up and I'll see Michael. I really like Good Bean here because it's convenient, and I think they do a good thing here. But I feel like, man, if I'm going to be out and about, like I take a drive up to your place, and I love where you're nested, and I love what you've built, and I love all the new things you've done. So kudos to you on growing a brand from something that had been around a long time, that had seen a lot of generational owners, but I feel like you've really raised the bar. So kudos to you at Oregon Mountain Coffee, man. You've done a great job.
That's a huge compliment. I really appreciate that, Aaron. That's huge.
Yeah. All right, boys. Well, another Coffee Experts Club under the belt. Travis, thank you so much for joining us as a guest. I know we probably didn't get through half the content. I'm sure we'll have you back on a part 2, and you can take us under the underbelly of something that you're super proud of things you've been working on. But thank you, man, for joining us as a guest. It was great having you on the Coffee Experts Club, and Drew and Ben, man, always great to have you boys here too as well.
Of course. Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Coffee Experts, thanks for joining us. See you next week.
See you.